All right. So, Sean, thanks for being here. Give you a quick little intro. If you guys don't know who Sean Pastuch is, he is the founder and CEO of Active Life RX and has been making waves in the rehab industry for quite some time now. His intention is to close the gap in between the fitness and the healthcare industries and empower millions of people to enjoy a life well lived. Traditionally, Sean is a doctor of chiropractic. He's also earned a degree in social behavioral and physical wellness earlier on in his career, but says he's learned a whole lot more about leadership and success from family and mentors. Sean, welcome to the Performance Rehab Revolution Virtual Summit. Thanks again for taking the time to be here today. We're really looking forward to hearing your thoughts.
I'm excited to talk to you guys about how we can start bridging that gap and helping rehab professionals and strength coaches start to be more aligned in the work that they're doing together as opposed to living on islands alone.
Yeah. There's a complete lack of a bridge, and even in the communication between all of them, just like the interdisciplinary communications. Well, so the first question that we had for you is, we've seen you speaking and posting on the concept that people are compromising. And so they're living these lives of compromise, both personally and professionally. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Compromise is the low energy way to resolve a conflict incompletely. So if you think about what that means, I'm fine. How are you today? You seem off. I'm fine. No, you're not. You're not fine. This might be the best it's going to get. No, it's not. It's not the best it's going to get. I don't need to make a lot of money. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You just decided that you don't because you've struggled to get there. Now you're rationalizing it. All of these are compromises, all the way down to, having sex with your spouse once a month, if that. Like, that's a compromise. To not being as fit as you want to be. That's a compromise. What you've done is you've traded something that you said you want for something that you believe is more attainable for the purposes of reducing your energy expense. And that's a cop-out that we've taught ourselves societally is actually a virtue that we should be chasing, when the reality is it forces us to live outside of our values. It forces us to change the mission and the purpose of our lives, or to not even have one. Because if we truly had a purpose and a mission to our lives and a set of values within which we pursue it, we would have no choice but to look at those things in our life that we're compromising on and say, this is unacceptable. Yeah. And so my entire career started because I saw fitness professionals and healthcare professionals compromising on the kind of lives that their clients and patients could have. And I wanted to be the guy who stopped that.
Yeah. It sounds a lot like the compromise starts out as like this little voice, and then they just let it get louder and louder and louder.
I think the compromise starts out as a voice out of somebody else's face. So I want to, like, when we're kids, you ask, like, I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 9-week-old.
Wow.
Yeah. And I used to ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they would say wild stuff. Like, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a astronaut photographer. I want to be a whatever. Right. And then I realized I want to stop asking them about what they want to do for a career. And I want to ask them how they want to live. So I stopped asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I asked them, how do you want to live when you grow up? And they just start answering questions totally differently. And what I find interesting about that, and the reason I'm bringing it up, is because when people are kids, nobody tells them that's ridiculous. You actually aren't intelligent enough to be an astronaut, and you don't like school. So that's a highly unlikely thing that's going to happen. But you're really great at these other, nobody does that. But then we get to like middle school, high school, and teachers all of a sudden start telling us, and family and friends start telling us, that's not what you're cut out for. And so we believe them. And so we immediately decide to live a smaller life than we otherwise would have. And then we get used to making decisions that force us into a smaller life than we otherwise would have. And this even happens when we're aiming for a big life in business sometimes. What happens is we hire the business mentor, the coach who gives us all the strategies to make all of the money. And they never ask, how do you want to live? And so the way they make the money doesn't align with the how do we want to live. And so we find ourselves making a bunch more money and not being any happier. And so where's the happiness supposed to come from? Well, the business no longer supports the life. The life now supports the business, and that was never the intention in the first place, but nobody asked. So it goes both ways. I don't want to make it seem as though this is all about money. Like we make compromises abundantly.
Yeah. It seems like the incongruency is what leads to a lot of the burnout, just mentally as well.
I think burnout is a result more typically of operating outside of our unique abilities too often. And what that means is, let's say that you're a chiro or a physical therapist or a strength coach. You might be really good at coming up with creative ways to solve issues, but if you're 50% of the time doing the notes to cover your ass, you're going to burn out because you didn't get into the business to do notes. If you're chasing money down from insurance companies half the time, you're going to burn out because you didn't get into the business to chase money down from insurance companies. If you're finding yourself in sales conversations with patients because you're a cash practice, you're going to burn out because you didn't get into the business to sell. So burnout, I think, comes from creating a life that doesn't take into consideration how you should best live it.
I think that's a really good point. Even just something you were saying a few minutes ago about like what is the purpose of your life? Like that's a conversation like Caitlin and I talk about all the time. Like we have meetings with each other. We sit down and map out like what do we want life to look like. And when you look at so many individuals, like most people don't have a purpose to their life or a plan. They're just like living day to day. So they get stuck in that. And then coming back to the compromise, like, excuse me, when I first started my business, right? Like everybody told me it was a bad idea. Like no one's going to pay you cash for services. Like no one's going to come see you. Like that's dumb. And then you want to listen to them, right? Because it seems safer. And like a lot of people get held back by the people that are around them. And I'm going to tie this back around to the business coaches that you mentioned of like, you go and you ask a business coach, like how to make more money and how to do these things. And for us, one of the biggest things that we've taken away from our current business coach, Bedros, as I think you knew, is just
I forgot about that.
Yeah, was like just bigger vision, right? Like we have our own constraints that we've put on what we think is possible in timeframes and what you're capable of, and then if somebody tells you to do this thing, like nonchalantly, this is what you're going to do. You're like, okay, cool. But if we had come up with the idea, we would have put all of these like constraints, and we need this much time, and we're not going to be able to do this or that or whatever. And like just because you have somebody else now that's not willing to make the compromise, like you were saying, like they're taking you out of your compromise, it opens up a world of possibilities for yourself.
Yes, and I'll challenge you.
Yeah.
Hope that's okay. You told me earlier that you like when people challenge you in the comment section on Instagram, so let's just do it in real conversation. It's also your responsibility to hold up the conversation that you two have had with each other about the life that you want to live and to ask, how does this get us to this? Because there are so many ways to make a lot of money, so many ways that it's overwhelming. Many of them are not aligned with the life that we want to live. And so it can very quickly become, we can make money doing this, we can make money doing this, let's try this, let's try this. And without the forethought of what does that take to make it really successful? And what does successful mean to us? So for example, I have a mentor who I work with. Outside of travel, which I have a constraint on how often I'll do it, success for me is being home by 6 p.m. I can have breakfast with my kids in the morning. They go to school at 8:45. So I'm having breakfast with them, and I'm home by 6 p.m. to have dinner with them, put them to bed. My mentor cannot make recommendations that pull me away from that. I have a team with 26 full-time people who work at Active Life. I'm responsible to make sure that they are successful at what they want their life to look like. And so I can't go taking side jobs that make me a bunch of money and leave them in the lurch and then expect them to not go take side jobs that pull them away from active life. So the only challenge I would throw out to you, and I'm not suggesting that you don't already do this, I'm just making sure people listening hear the full circle of it. Always challenge your business mentors to demonstrate how does this fit into the life that we said we want to live.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You're absolutely right. I don't think most people do that. Caveat, right, would be that there is typically going to be a period of hard work. It's like you're working towards the goal. So in the short term, you might have to make some sacrifices depending on where you're starting from, right? Like you, where you are now, you've got a base built, but getting there, right? I'm sure you probably had to make some sacrifices along the way to get to there.
I make sacrifices now. There's a difference between a sacrifice and a compromise.
Mm-hmm.
A sacrifice is, I want this, but I don't deserve it yet. That's a sacrifice. A compromise is the reason I work for myself and have all of these employees who I genuinely care about is because I want to own a company that does something meaningful and make a lot of money at the same time. And how am I going to help my employees live fulfilling lives if I'm only living a fulfilled life while I'm at work? I have to be it. So the sacrifice is, I don't pay myself $1 million a year. The sacrifice is, I let things happen a little bit slower than they otherwise would if I was doing them, because I let other people make mistakes so that they can learn from them, so that ultimately our foundation becomes so strong that we can go higher and further than I could go by myself in time. Those are sacrifices, not compromises.
I like the clarity between those two. I think that's important.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example of what a compromise would look like. Okay. A compromise would be, I tell the sales team, go sell anybody who comes to you. If they're interested, you fucking sell them. That's a compromise. If a coach comes to us and says, I want to learn how to do what you guys do, and we ask them a line of questions and they say things like, I would rather coach group than one-on-one. Making, 6 figures is not a priority to me. Having fun every single day while I coach is. I'm not going to raise prices on my clients, and I'm not prepared to lose the clients I'm currently working with to get new ones who value me differently. I want to work with people on sports performance specifically, or on bodybuilding or aesthetics or anything of that nature. That's not our client. And if I tell the sales team, you sell them anyway, I'm compromising on our values and thereby making the job of our team more difficult. And so we turn away millions of dollars a year, no exaggeration, millions of dollars a year in business that would have taken their credit card out and given it to us, when we could use that money. I can tell you exactly how I'd spend it. But we turn it away because it would be a compromise on our mission and our values to take those people in as clients.
Yeah. And if anybody watching this thinks this is lip service, you can just watch Sean's Instagram stories. He shares testimonials of people that they've actually turned away in one different way. So it's a fact. So why don't we talk about this? Why don't you let us know, like, what do you think, what does freedom without compromise look like?
It's a life without compromise. So the reason why I'll give you specifics. The reason why we said freedom without compromise is because it is a redundancy. If I said to somebody, are you living with freedom? Everybody in the United States is saying yes, except people who just wake up to complain, who aren't my people anyway. So yes. Okay. Without compromise? Well, I compromise on this. Oh, okay. So you're not free. So we put both of them there. And they're free in terms of they could change their mind, but they're not free in so much that they allowed themselves to believe that they would be successful at changing their mind. So they're a prisoner of their own mindset. So freedom without compromise means I have a mission statement for my life. I have values within which I pursue it. I make every single decision in alignment with those. That is freedom without compromise. It's not, I want sushi, but my wife wants Italian. So I'm going for Italian because I prefer to stay married and keep having sex and all the fun stuff, right? That's not a compromise that I'm talking about. I'm talking about cheating on my wife, right? There are a lot of pretty women who've made it clear they'd be happy to, right?
Yeah.
Way more, by the way, after I started making money than before, for the record.
Weird how that happens.
It's an oddity. I had much better physique when I was broke. But anyway, I still have a decent physique. Don't get me wrong. But that would be a compromise. My values don't allow me, or my mission statement doesn't allow me to cheat on my wife. So if I did, I'm compromising. That's not freedom. That's me letting my unconscious mind run my life.
Mhm.
Another example would be at this point, staying up late at night and watching Netflix. That's not like, it's perceived as freedom. I can do whatever I want. Yeah, but I want to wake up in the morning and work out. I want to be healthy. I want to be vibrant. I want to be around for as long as my genetic ceiling will allow me to be. Plus science. Let's give that puppy a shot. But like, that's freedom. I have the freedom to go to bed early. So to me, that's what freedom without compromise looks like. It's not, I want to go on vacation this week, so I'm out of work and we're just going to go. Like, that's called fuck you money. Those are different. Compromise and fuck you money are different. And I'm not in a position yet where that's in the cards for me.
What would you say for the strength coaches, the clinicians, for that group of people, are there any specific examples that you see over and over again of what it is that they're compromising on, whether
Yes.
consciously or not consciously?
There's a lot. The biggest one, and this is the one that I think I cut through because from the beginning, I didn't understand what I was doing, but I was like, I'm not doing that. They compromise on waiting for data to give them permission to do things. Where's your study on that, bro? Like, shut up. I actually had somebody one time who, like, here's the thing for people to understand. Data and research exists to validate hypothesis, not to permit it. What that means is it's our jobs to experiment. They call it practice. It's our job to experiment and to try new things that are safe. I'm not saying to put your patients and your clients at risk. Try new things that are safe, that there is a logical hypothesis is going to work based on established science that you're now taking and saying, I think that we can tie this to this and it makes that. Try it. See what happens. Don't wait for a study to come out that says 10 years ago, this kid in New York was doing this stuff and everyone was telling him he was stupid. And now it's common practice because science has validated it. Don't be the person who says afterwards, well, you weren't doing it exactly like this. Shut up. Like, that's the number one compromise that fitness, strength and conditioning, and medical professionals are making.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think to add to that, I think a lot of people will use that as a cop out of, because at a certain point, you're not going to get any more information to make a decision. You're just procrastinating making the decision. If it's just not there, if you have all the information that you need in order to make a decision, whether it's starting a business or deciding on, that you want to go do anything. And
I'll give you a simple example. One of the things that got me in a lot of hot water or a hot tub, depending on how comfortable you are in it. For me, it was a hot tub with champagne. Was saying, if you can't single leg step up the same amount of weight at the same height for within 20% of the same number of reps from left leg to right leg, you have no business squatting. So for example, if you can't take 100 pounds, put it on your front rack and step up with it at a box that's above your knee height, let's say you can do it 20 times on the left. If you can only do it 15 on the right, you have no business squatting and using both legs at the same time. And if you're down in like the 7, 8, 10 range, you are at risk of injury. That was the thing I used to say. Where's your data on the injury? Well, you don't have any. I don't have any. It just seems like common sense that if somebody has twice the strength, stamina, explosiveness, whatever we're testing on one side than they do on the other, and then we ask them to train bilaterally, they're going to favor the side that they're better on. And I would ask people, scientists who would come at me, scientists in air quotes, for those of you listening, not watching, I would say, I understand you want me to show you studies. I get it. Here's a question for you. Do you shower on a regular basis? I'm like, yeah, of course I do. What are you talking about? Well, why? Well, for hygiene purposes. And I would ask, do you have studies that validate that the water in your shower is clean? That the soap that you use actually does what you believe it does? That when you get out of the shower, your hygienic profile is higher than it was when you got in? Well, like, then stop talking to me.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of conversations that I have with clinicians regularly, right? I get it, evidence-based practice, but also using your fucking brain, right? Like common sense is a big thing that's missing from the healthcare industry in general, right? It was like, well, where's all the studies? I've got you can find studies that prove and disprove all kinds of things for the same fucking thing, right? Just depends on what's your intention with the study. There's so many biases and everything, but the common sense bit is severely lacking.
I think most people get lost in the minutia of what the argument ends up being about. And so what happens is, like, I'm having this right now with Ozempic is something that I made a post. I didn't think it'd be a big deal and it exploded. So now I have to talk about it. But so it's one of these things where the person would come to me and argue with me about Ozempic or step-ups, and they're talking about the data, right? This is what the drug does, that like all these things are irrefutable. I'm like, no doubt. No doubt. And if fire cooks, no doubt about that either, right? But I don't see you lighting your house on fire. So what is the right amount? When should we use it? How should we use it? Where should we use it? All of those questions is what I really want to know about. And what I want to know next is when somebody is irresponsibly using it, what is the penalty? Like, these are the things that I want to talk about. Not that fire is hot. Not that Ozempic works to get rid of body fat. Not that if you have a back squat of X and you can only do step-ups at 50% on one leg than the other, that, like, what is the exact number of, like, what's the exact diagnosis that it's going to lead to? No. When should we do it?
Yeah, that makes sense. So if we pivot a little bit and we take a look at like a clinician, for instance, who doesn't love their job, right? Who knows the system's broken and that like they aren't able to help people, athletes, active adults the way that they want to, and they're not going to be better in the system. Like, what's the first step they can take to kind of like, let's say, align their desired identity, right, in their life?
First of all, that's not a pivot. That's like a police car in a movie making an S turn. And
there's just something that's been like,
I'm good with it. I'm good with it. There's a few things that I think are important, and I've made these mistakes personally. So I'm sharing with you now what I would have done differently back in time. I think I end up where I am now faster if I did it the way I'm describing it. Oftentimes, we're in that position. We assume we know better. We're burnt out by the work that we're doing because of what our boss or the system that we're in is forcing us to do. And so we just jump out of it and start doing something totally different. The first thing I think is important to do is to have a conversation with yourself about, have I actually explored all of the ways in which I might be wrong? And usually the answer to that is going to be no. So start with, if you can't make a steel man argument for the person who is diametrically opposite of your belief set, you're not ready to leave. You need to be able to argue both sides of the same point with the same vigor and the same enthusiasm and the same efficacy before you can say, okay, I now thoroughly understand everybody's position, the reason why, the reason how, and I've decided that this one is more aligned with the way I want to live. So step one, get some awareness. Step two is get some time in the other world, the one you think you know that you want to leave for. You don't know it yet. You know what it could be. You know what you think it could be. Who's doing it really well? How could you go spend time with them? And it doesn't have to be somebody local. They could fly out to you guys and spend 2, 3, 4 days. I imagine that if someone said, hey, right now I'm in a mill, so I have to either adjust 50 patients a day or throw stim and ice and Graston on 50 patients a day, whatever it is. And I hate it. Can I come out and see what your practice functions like for a day, 2 days, whatever it is? I imagine you would say yes until it became an absurdity of people wanting to come out where it was actually an energy expense on you. And then you might try to set up a business around it, right? Do that, people. Not necessarily all to these two, but try to find somebody who's as local to you as is possible, or somebody who is as virtuous as you believe is possible, and travel to them and spend time watching how they do things. When you get there, by the way, make their life easier. Clean up, bring lunch, do all the things that make it so that these people who are doing a favor for you, whoever they are glad they did it, not exhausted from doing it. But go make sure that that's what you actually want. That's the first step for anybody in that position.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because so many people, it's like the grass is always greener on the other side, right? There's always the appeal of oh, it would be better if this, until you get in that situation. You're like, shit, this is not what I thought it was going to be like at all. I mean, even just owning a cash practice, there's a trade-off, right? Yeah, I'm not seeing 4 patients an hour, but we also have to fucking run the business, right? We have to learn marketing and learn sales and develop systems and processes and all the things that shit. When I opened a practice, I did not do that. I just woke up one morning and I was like, fuck this, I'm done. And I drove to work and gave 3 weeks notice. And I was like, all right, looks like I'm gonna figure this out. And I wish that I knew a little bit at least about what I was getting into. I could have definitely better prepared myself.
And one thing I'll add to that is, when you're in that mode, if you're a person who quiet quits, you're not going to be successful in your own thing. So meaning, you're leaving, you put your 3 weeks in. Continue to execute at a high level for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because if you're all right, I put my 3 weeks in, whatever, I'm out of here anyway. You just have the wrong mindset to be successful anywhere.
Yeah, and that's actually, we've seen that with employees.
Sure.
You know what I mean? They come in and if they give a notice, it's at this point in my mind, I'm like, well, you're actually done now. You just quit now and you want me to pay you for 2 weeks of coming in and not doing a fucking thing. Making a mess.
Listen, I've had people who took our education who are local to us, who, when I've needed to hire, I don't go to, because they've told me that they quiet quit their other job. I'm like, well, you don't have the character to work at Active Life. I don't say that to them, but when an opportunity arises that they might be good for on paper, I don't even call.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it speaks to a lot of the work ethic that is lacking in a lot of people these days. And I mean, I think technology makes it easy to just hit the easy button for a lot of different activities in our life. Now we have Amazon, we have, TV on demand, we have everything at our fingertips, and nobody wants to work hard anymore. And so then, when you're talking about character, that's the first thing, when we're interviewing people, our first screener question is, what values do you live your life by? And that tells us a lot more than,
What do you, so can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
There's this space that I'm exploring myself right now. If I ask somebody that question and they don't know, is it because they don't have them, or is it because no one's ever taught them how to articulate them? And is it my job to teach them how to articulate them, or is it my job to find people who have them? I'm curious where you're at on that spectrum.
I think I've heard people who they may not be able to articulate it, but there's a difference in someone who has values and they're like an authentic person and they have good work ethic versus somebody who, you know, isn't gonna work hard. And I really don't know how to articulate that myself with the difference. Like it's not something that I can speak to. Do you have a better answer?
Yeah, well, I guess it's also like we're not expecting them to list like these are my values 1, 2, 3, and 4, right?
Yeah.
But it's more along the lines of
Why not?
well, because a lot to your point, a lot of people haven't sat down and like thought about it and listed it. So what I've noticed is that people that have values, like they'll think about the answer, like they'll sit there and they'll think and they'll kind of talk through it, and you can pick up on the patterns and then help clarify.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
We have also talked to people that do have a set of values. So like these are my values. And the reason why I don't expect everybody to have it is just because of what I mentioned earlier, where like there's a lot of people that are coasting through life and they're kind of clarifying as they go. And it might be someone that's trying to figure it out in the moment, right? Of
Yeah.
like, I'm trying to develop this. I know that I want to grow. And these are some things. This is the way that I think about things, but I haven't articulated it into a set of, in which case, like, absolutely. In that case, like if we bring somebody down, like we want to help them clarify that and like get that down on paper, right? Like literally on paper, so you can look at it and read it and make sure that you're using that as a guide for decision making through life. But there's a big difference I've seen when people have put no thought into it and they don't really have values of how they respond very uncertainly, and they don't even understand really what we mean by the question sometimes.
I'll clarify my previous answer with, to Roger's point, he said that there's people who have values in place that they know that they've done the work, they've thought about their life. I know that that person is already in their head thinking about these kinds of things. And I know that they intentionally work on self-development. Maybe somebody who's not that far along in their self-development journey, but who can talk through a little bit of it. Like they talk about how family is important and how, you know, they've worked hard to get to this point in their career, and maybe they don't know what they want to do, but they have this some importance and they see the trajectory and they just don't know how to put the pieces together yet. And that also speaks to somebody who's maybe earlier on in that journey, but still has the values and they know bits and pieces of it. Whereas, you know, we've had some people who, there was one person that actually said, I value myself. And I was like, wow, okay, that's not what we're looking for.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate that answer.
Yeah.
I had something I want to say and I totally lost it. Oh, that's something that a lot of people don't talk about though, as well, is that like in business success, life success, it really is all about a continual journey of like assessing your values and personal growth, right? A lot of people will read self-help books and do that type of stuff, and they do absolutely nothing with the information, right? Humans, I think, tend to be, and you can disagree with me, just prolific content consumers. And you can give somebody all of this information, people can listen to this conversation, but if they don't go and fucking do something with the information, then there's no actual development that comes from it.
Well, I agree with you. And to compound it, I actually think that most people are failing as a result of too much doing, not as a result of not taking action. It's the fact that we do all these different things that we haven't developed to be the person who would be successful at doing those things at a low energy cost, which would indicate that we're going to continue doing them. And then what happens is somebody comes in and tells us, you just need to be more disciplined. Again, shut the fuck up. That's not true. Discipline is not an attribute. It's a result. It's a result of a person who has a meaningful purpose and a process through which they truly believe they're going to achieve it. There's no reason that anybody would break their process on their way to a goal that is very important to them if they believe the process is going to work and they truly want the outcome. When that's the case, discipline is the result. So now what happens is we talk about the personal development thing, right? I think it's our job as employers to do less developing of people and more revealing of people. People already have it in them. It's about helping them pull it out and showing them like, no, you're really great at this thing. And the reason why I think people oftentimes procrastinate is because they're overwhelmed by all the things that we could do. Instead of thinking about, if I was already that version of myself, which things would I already be doing? Okay, let me become that person. That's a much harder conversation to have with ourselves and a much more effective one in making everything downstream work. If it's okay, I'll give you a simple example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We all know people who are a mess and they're bouncing around from exercise program to exercise program. Oh, this is the one that's going to finally lose the weight for me. This diet to that diet. This is going to finally work. They're always dealing with an ache or a pain. They've never made enough money. They're always complaining about their employer or the job that they're in. But this new thing I learned is going to solve all of that stuff for me. So I'm really applying it now. And we can see all of the errors in that way. We know how that story ends. They're not one tactic away from being successful. They are a whole new person away from being successful, which, by the way, is no harder to achieve than a new tactic. But no one's talking to them about becoming a new person because it's a much bigger conversation. And we think we're one tactic away because we can see that in the people who are steps behind us. But the reality is we are also not one tactic away. We are also new people away from being successful. And so I say all of that because when people are out there looking for help, I always advise people look for someone who's going to change the way that you think about who you are. And then everything else is going to fall into place. You won't need them to teach you how to run a Facebook ad. Like the rest is going to fall into place.
Yeah, I love that example. That makes me think of, so it's kind of related. So have you ever heard the example of like, if somebody wins the lottery, somebody who doesn't have any of the skill set to manage money is just gonna blow it all. But somebody who's gone through all the lessons, who has learned all the skills, is gonna have a much better time. Like they've become the person that they need to be in order to manage that money. Whereas the other person maybe just hadn't gotten there yet. And you can put those two people in the same scenario and you're going to have very different outcomes. And that's the same thing. Like the people just have to learn how to be that person.
Yes. When I'm or Active Life is mentoring somebody, we want to, like, if you're a poor husband, we're going to make you a better husband before we're going to try to make you better at business. Because if you can become a better husband, the business stuff is obvious. It just means you haven't been treating yourself properly and you haven't been treating other people properly as a result of how you talk to yourself. So let's change that. If you're lacking confidence or self-esteem, which I think are very different, by the way, confidence is circumstantial. It's within a single thing. Self-esteem is who I am. We have to help develop that before we give you the thing that you think fills the hole that is causing you to not have self-esteem. I don't make any money, therefore I am not successful. Therefore, I am a loser. I'm being hyperbolic here, right? Okay, if I come and say, I'm going to help you make more money so that you can have more self-esteem, what happens when you have a bad month? You're going to have a bad month. I have to help you develop a sense of self. And then I promise the rest of it takes care of itself. Today, the things that cost you a lot of energy to do from a tactical perspective cost you a lot of energy to do them because you are not yet the person who could do them with low energy. Imagine becoming that person. It would be like going to the gym as a 300-pound gorilla who's been lifting for 20 years and then saying, okay, I want to teach you a new exercise, compared to being a person who went to the gym today for the first time because you've never worked out. And it's like, we're going to teach you this new exercise. Who's going to learn it faster? That's the point.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect segue into the next question of, so we have these people who maybe undervalue themselves to begin with, internally, and then they're learning maybe what the other side of the fence looks like in the industry as they're trying to bridge the gap. What would you tell somebody if maybe they're undervaluing themselves internally? So then they start, undercharging, or what would you say just about charging for your worth and the value of what services that you're providing?
That's not about undervaluing themselves, I don't think. I think that that's about misunderstanding who they're talking to and how they're being spoken with. So let me give you an example there. I want to make sure I'm understanding the question though. The question is, what would I say to the person who's undervaluing their services or themselves, for example? So they're charging too little, giving a lot, and on a wheel that's never going to allow them off because I can't make more than this. Yes?
Yes. So I guess there's 2 points to it. So one, somebody doesn't have the confidence to charge what they think they might be worth or what the service might be worth. And then the other one is, even if they have the confidence that they're good at the service, maybe they just don't know how to price it, and so they just go for the low one. Any more clarity on that?
So the second one is easy. That's just gaining some business awareness. That's making friends who have a lot more money than you. That's it.
Yeah.
That one,
really underrated, by the way.
that's it. That one is all about making friends who have more money than you. For a long time, I wouldn't take on entrepreneurial mentorship clients because I thought I needed to be full focus on active life. What I learned through my own team, by the way, was no, we need you doing that so that influential people want to come and work with active life when they see what you can help them do in their lives. So now I take on entrepreneurial clients. And when I started thinking about how to do it, I talked to a guy who makes a lot more money than me, who I'm friendly with. And he told me what he does. And I was like, and what else? And he's like, that's it. I'm like, and what are they paying you? He's like, $5,000 a month was this person in particular. And I was like, I would feel like I was letting people down only doing that. I'd want to do more. And if they paid me that much money, I would feel fulfilled by it. Like, okay, I'll just do that. And it's like, where was I for the last 5 years? I should have been doing this the whole time. It's fulfilling for me. It's fulfilling for them. And if I didn't speak to somebody who makes a lot more money than me, I wouldn't have thought that that's where the value would live. Right? So that's one. The other side of it, I don't think I have the value, or, I can't get people no one will pay more than that. This often starts as a result of who you're already talking to in your business. There is probably a Honda or Nissan or Toyota, I don't mean to pick on the Japanese here, dealership on the same street as a Mercedes, BMW, or otherwise in your town or in a town near you, and different people walk into them. So if somebody walked into the BMW dealership or the Hyundai dealership, now we're in Korea, right? So we're laying off the Japanese, and they said, look, our starting car is $48,000. Someone would be like, what are you talking about? Who has $48,000 for a Toyota or a Hyundai? I'm a Toyota or Hyundai because I don't have $48,000. And so if you only worked in that dealership, you would be like, nobody in this town can afford a $48,000 car. Now you go down the block and you're in the Mercedes dealership. It's $48,000. What's wrong with it? Is the question you're going to get. And so what happens is oftentimes we start charging so little that we start getting market share of people who can't afford premium services. Good that you're taking care of them. Somebody needs to. It's difficult to make a career taking care of them. It's the unfortunate truth. So what happens next is you start to believe nobody in this market will pay more. This is what the market bears. But what's happening is the people who would pay a lot more aren't considering you an option because you don't charge enough. Something's got to be wrong with your service. And by the way, there is something wrong with your service. Because if I said to you, you have to charge 5, 6, 7, 10 times more than you're charging right now, what would you change about what you give to your patients or clients? Great. Break that down now. What could you give them of that long list you just made that cost you $0 and 0 extra time? Great. What from that list could you give them that cost you $0 but a little bit of time? What could you give them that cost you a little bit of money and a little bit of time? And start to segment this out. You see where it's going until you're a lot of money, a lot of time. Build that out. Now ask yourself, maybe the reason I'm not getting the money that I thought I should be getting is because I'm actually not doing all of the things I would need to be doing to get all of that money. And so when I talk to people who would expect to spend that, they're like, oh, okay, that's nice. Good to meet you.
Yeah. Shit, I just lost it. I don't
You
know
got to get a
what-
pen, man.
I start writing stuff down. I think that's very valid, right? Like people have a hard time once they bury themselves in the situation where they've got everybody knocking on their door that isn't gonna pay for it. Because then they start to believe it, like you said, right? So what would you say to somebody? You just kind of laid out the steps of what to do. So what are the next steps from there, right? You have them take the things that are
The next step is have them come to Jesus or whoever your God is. And you identify, I'm only going to do this for a living if I can live the life that this job is supposed to get for me. And in order for me to do that, I have to charge this much money and see this many people. So if I can't charge this much money and see this many people, I can't do this for a living either. You're living in a fairy tale if you believe something is just going to change. You have to take the chance one day. I heard a great quote the other day. It was that hard work is not rewarded. Hard work, when risk is involved, is rewarded. Because if you don't take risks, you're just on a hand. Like I can work 18-hour days. I've done it. Doesn't mean I'm going to be successful. I worked 18-hour days and made $30,000 a year because I wasn't taking chances. One of the chances you need to take is no one's going to pay this. Great. In 6 months, you'll know that you never should have done this in the first place.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've looked into and is like comparing all the data sets, and Roger and I have compared clinicians who are good at what they do and how they perform as clinic owners to clinicians who maybe haven't focused so much on their skill set. They don't feel confident and they have a lot more questions. And the numbers between the two, like between people who question themselves and get stuck and don't get people all the way better versus people who are confident and typically crush it, like the numbers are night and day. Like people are making 1.5 to 3 times more money when they're fulfilling the service that they're marketing and they're saying, hey, this is the outcome that I'm going to give you, and then they deliver it, whereas these people mostly deliver it.
If you want to make a lot of money in the world of strength and conditioning, medical, whatever, my number one piece of advice is stop solving the problem that people come in knowing that they have and start solving the problem that people come in not knowing that they have, that they truly want the solution to. So for example, somebody comes into your clinic, my back hurts. That's not why you're here, bro. No, of course it is. What are you talking about? Well, did it start hurting this morning? No. How long has it been hurting for? 4 months. Why did you wait 4 months to come in here? Well, because now I can't play golf. The season's getting nicer outside and all these different things. Got it. So you're not here for back pain. You're here so you can play golf this summer. Yes. Okay. Well, that's a very different thing. By the way, you want to go even further? You want to really see some success? Why is golf important to you? Well, golf allows me to hang out with my best friends. It's a good outlet for my stress. Huh. What are you dealing with stress from? Like, this is what the elite do. I can get rid of your back pain. Here's what it costs. That's what a technician can do.
Yeah.
Very great point.
Yeah. Absolutely. And people connect with that more. You build more rapport, and their why to even doing the thing becomes a lot more solidified, and they're bought in on the entire process, especially when then they have to put in effort throughout the process.
Well, and it forces you as the professional to build relationships to help this person when you can't anymore. Because if they're like, I'm just really stressed from work, I'm like, you might hear from people, my marriage is in shambles. I need golf as a stress relief. Oh, what are you doing for your marriage? What can I do? Well, I'm not a marriage counselor, but I know some. I would love to introduce, like, you need to be that person if you want to be able to demand the highest possible price point.
Absolutely.
Which also is a very different experience than, what are you here for today, Sean? Your back hurts?
Yes, correct.
Okay, cool. How's your blood pressure?
Yes.
Maybe we should check that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think this has been great. Is there anything else you want to ask?
No, I think that's all been very, very insightful.
Awesome. Well, Sean, thanks for coming. Thanks for talking. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with everybody. If people want to follow you, how do they find you?
At Dr. Sean Pastuch on Instagram is my personal. And if you're looking for the stuff that our company puts out, I would recommend Active Life Professional on Instagram.
How do they get on your email list?
Just get on my fucking email list. Find little stories. I get on it before Instagram kicks me off for saying things that are commonsensical.
Saw that. And then is there anything else you wanted to share, let people know what happening over at Active Life?
Yeah. But we could go 4 hours on that.
Cool. So guys, just make sure you follow him on Instagram, find Active Life. And if you guys have any questions, shoot him a DM. He's very, very responsive to every message he gets. I have to send him messages all the time. Well, thanks, Sean.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Bye, everybody.